So welcome to the first episode of Havvy Got News for You, the new Haverfordwest podcast. We're joined by our esteemed guests who need no introduction, Mr. Wayne Jones and Rob Edwards. Thanks for joining me. And we'll get straight into it. The first question then, we'll start with you, Wayne. What's your favourite football memory?
My favourite football memory? Oh, right. I'd most probably have to say, obviously, with my beloved Wolves first and foremost. 2003 playoff final. We beat Sheffield United at the Millennium Stadium, as it was then, 3-0. I think it was a bit worse for me with my dad. We went to watch the game, and obviously the first time for me to see Wolves get promoted into the Premier League. It was a great day, fairly local, caught the train up, spent all day up in Cardiff, embraced St Mary's Street. Great win, great day. That's something that, as a hardcore Wolves fan, sticks in my mind, and that's a great memory for me.
Rob,
yeah.
Not too many memories, to be honest. As an Orient fan, we don't tend to get up to too much. But actually, it was 10 years ago this weekend that we drew at home with Arsenal in the FA Cup, and we called it Jonathan Tahoué Day because he was basically our super sub. I think of all the goals he scored, I don't think he scored before the 85th minute. And he came on and equalised, I think, 3 minutes before the end to get a replay at the Emirates. So that was amazing scenes. Owner Barry Hearn was in the bar buying a few drinks and spreading good cheer, as Barry Hearn does whenever he gets involved in anything, to be honest. So yeah, that was a standout. As I said, not too many glorious days as an Orient fan, but yeah, that was pretty special.
I think for me, my dad always says to me, I've been very lucky as a Swans fan. Even though I'm happy to admit that I'm a Bluebird now, not in the other context. But yeah, he's always said I'm quite lucky as a Swans fan because he grew up watching the Swans in the 90s and the early noughties when we weren't exactly one of the better teams in Wales. And probably similar ilk to you there, Wayne. My favourite football memory has got to be the 2011 playoff final, seeing the Swans get to the Premier League for the first time. So I think fortunately two out of three of us are supporting a relatively successful team.
All right. There's no need for that.
Brilliant.
So you said Rob, you're a Leyton Orient fan and you're a diehard Orient fan, and you're now an adopted Bluebird. So how come Haverfordwest? How did that come about?
It was just the opportunity, really. It wasn't something I've said all along that if I'd have known it was Haverfordwest when the opportunity came through, I probably wouldn't have even asked any questions. But the fact it came through, obviously knew of the club, knew of the area, just as a football fan, and it was just obviously a lot of positives going on the field at that time, with promotion sort of almost guaranteed by FAW decision. And just the opportunity to build something in what was quite a good time for the club, really, going back to the Premier League. Financially, it's been really well looked after by David Hughes and the previous custodians, and they've took it to this point. So it just meant that any sort of time, input, money, anything that goes into the club will be able to take it forward. And there's not too many opportunities that you see in football where it's not just where there's a vanity project and you're just putting money in to keep it going. That's not. I've got racehorses. I mean, if I don't need any more expensive hobbies with racehorses and the amount of wine that I drink. So this is it's not that at all. I think it's just the opportunity to build something and realistically achieve good things at this level. I mean, there's European places we've mentioned all along is something that was the biggest draw, and it's certainly achievable if we do things right.
So at what point kind of did you realise, is it always been a kind of an ambition to own a football club or run a football club, or is it something that's come along recently? You thought, yes, this is now the time for me to do this?
I think every football fan would love to be the chairman of a football club. I think that's probably close second to being a professional footballer. I think that's something most of us would want to do. It still feels a bit surreal, to be honest. Even when I tell people or it comes up in conversation, I feel like I'm lying to them. I don't actually think my poor dear old mummy, but I don't think she really gets it, to be honest. When I mentioned it to her, she said, "Oh, what you just you running a club for your mates then?" And it was like, "No, mum, it's a pretty big deal actually." So yeah, I think it's something that I never imagined really, but still feels a bit surreal, but yeah, just loving every minute. And I think the performances on the pitch of late, or for most of the season really, but particularly of late, we're showing that we can really hold our own, and the potential of the club is really exciting.
So, Wayne, what's it like being a manager of Haverfordwest? Obviously, it's not the bright lights of the Premier League, but give us a little bit of an insight what it's like being the manager of a club in the top flight of Welsh football.
Well, first and foremost, it is enjoyable. Very stressful, and I think that's because I personally wear my heart on my heart on my sleeve, as they say. You're learning the game. We're all sort of, as they say, students of the game, and you're learning every week. And I've been involved with Haverfordwest itself for 17-18 years on and off. As I started didn't start as a player, but I left my hometown club to join there back in 2002. Had some great memories. Played in some good teams. Played at, we're fortunate enough we got into Europe in 2004, which is obviously still the big highlight of the club's history. I'd really good times, met a lot of good people there. Fell in love with the club, if the truth be told, Jordan. I had the opportunity then when I retired at 29 due to injury to come back a couple of years later to fulfill a coaching role there, which obviously was an opportunity that I couldn't turn down under Derek Brazil. Unfortunately, the club got relegated as Derek and I returned to the club due to obviously being a poor season prior to that and changing management. But we've seen the season out under the guidance then of, the chairman of Dave Hughes and Rob Summons, as he was then. We rebuilt the club and took the club forward again at the restructure. But yeah, it's been a long, enjoyable journey. I took a stint away. I went to Aberystwyth for 2 seasons. I felt it was right for my career at the time because I didn't want to be a one-trick pony. I retired fairly young, went into coaching fairly young. I worked with Sean Cresser, as it was then, as my assistant for 4 seasons. We got promoted and unfortunately got relegated the year after. And I just felt personally it was the right time to move away from the club and take on a new role as an assistant manager, which I'd never been. And you learn different aspects of the game. You learn, so much how to apply yourself differently on match days and training. And, it was something that I enjoyed. And obviously when the opportunity to come back again, like I said, I was still in love with the club and it was just something that I couldn't turn down. But the answer to your question, being a manager, is very enjoyable when you win. There's a lot of stress and, obviously we work full time, it's part time. It takes up a lot of your time. And a lot of it most probably verbal communication more than maybe obviously not together as often with the players. But there's nothing rewarding than, when you win, you get a result and satisfying, I suppose, once you've worked on something and game plans and structures into place and it pays off. That's what you work it for. And, being around the people and, we've noticed of late, to be honest with you, Jod, football is an outball sometimes because, you work in and you're stressed and the times we're in and it takes your mind off things so much. And, it's something you've got to embrace and enjoy. So, I'm blessed. I'm fortunate. I work within a great club, within a great structure, and I'm very privileged. So, it'd be wrong for me to come out and say that, I don't enjoy it. Or yes, you get bad days, you get, upsetting results. But on the whole, being a manager of a Welsh Premier team in your National League, for me at the moment, it doesn't get better. So live the dream, as they say.
So let's talk a little bit about like match day itself. Obviously, yours might be a little bit different to mine and Rob's. But start with you, Wayne. What's your kind of match day routine? Do you have any superstitions?
I don't have superstitions. I don't. I did as a player, believe it or not. I had a couple, but in the capacity I am now, I just think I most probably be honest. My wife will tell you, if we're home game, I'll always have a bath before leaving the house. I don't have a shower, I have a bath. I soak in the bath, I'll have my breakfast, chat, and obviously by the time I travel down and I like to get to the ground fairly early. That's most probably in terms of my own little pre-match ritual to myself. But because when I get there, it's just hands to the pump. You're preparing, you want to see the opposition team as soon as, and obviously I'm nagging you, George, straight away to give me their team. And, I go away, I have a little 5 minutes to myself in the manager's room there. I try to gather my thoughts. I get, my prepping right. Even though I'm quite proactive. I like to prepare in training sessions, which obviously you do, but I like to get my detail in my training session, who does what, why, and then you come into the changing room, you're just recapping, refreshing, re-emphasising how you want to play. But then obviously seeing their team sheet, you can allocate certain players from, i.e. set plays. And I'll be honest with you, my time's taken up with that. Obviously prior to going out for the warm-up, you're constantly focused, you're constantly trying to get things right, trying to get into the players' minds, how you want, what you want them to do. And to be honest with you, by the time kickoff comes, you're in the zone then. You get your result, hopefully, you come home, you're absolutely deflated, and you normally open a can or you go down your local for a pint. and that's basically my day, But again, everyone's different, but I haven't really got that much on terms of superstitions or anything like that anymore.
What about you, Rob? I can imagine any Haverfordwest match days kind of involves quite a lot of travelling.
It does. I mean, I don't know what's worse, actually being there or not being there, because obviously long days to be there, but obviously a lot of nervous energy being in and around the stadium. I don't tend to keep still, to be honest. Have a few coffees just to try and calm my nerves. Maybe a little flask if it's cold, just to keep the cockles warm. But not unfortunately not being able to see as many as I would have liked this season, obviously due to travel restrictions and such. But I think watching at home, I would be unbearable. I think it's lucky that I do live alone, because I would be an absolute nightmare to live with between sort of 2:30 and 4:30 on a Saturday, because it just sat there basically wondering what's going on. I think Jordan obviously doesn't tend to tweet too much, so I need to give him a little kick once in a while. Just what's happening, George?
He's in the zone, Rob. He's in the zone watching the game. He's sucked into it.
He clearly. I put the flash scores on, so obviously that pipes up whenever there's a goal. But yeah, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible watching the game through social media. It's not fun at all. And the game just go quickly when I'm there. It just feels a bit of a blur, to be honest. It's just bags of nervous energy.
I'll take that round endorsement of my tweets in the games. Unfortunately, the tweets aren't as quick as something as like flash scores, because when something happens, even if it's a yellow card or particularly a goal, I've got to put it on Twitter and Facebook and comment and Instagram as well. So I've got a list of priorities to post something. So by the time a goal goes in, it could be 30 seconds before it goes on Twitter, and I've already received a WhatsApp message from you, Rob, by that point.
Brilliant.
So you kind of alluded about your desire, Rob, to be a football chairman earlier. But what was it like running a football club for the first time? So let's take you back. I think it's just under a year ago now. What was it like on the first day of kind of having that job title as chairman of Haverfordwest County? What was it like?
Yeah, as I said before, it's really surreal. It's actually March 27th, I think, so about 9 months in, so not quite a year. It feels I've certainly aged more than 9 months. That's 100% for sure. But it does feel longer. I think for me, it was just about just getting my head stuck into it and understanding as much as possible. I think not being able to travel for the first few months and trying to get to know everyone remotely and not having stuff going on around the ground. I get calls from Alan Thomas or David Hughes saying, something needs to be done around the ground. I couldn't visualize it. I couldn't walk through and see what it was like. So I kind of had to leave a lot just to their judgment, really. I trust everyone there implicitly. So if something needs to be done, I know they're always on it and they always get it done. But yeah, it was difficult for the first few months, just because I couldn't physically be there and get to meet everyone and get to know the area. But yeah, since then it's been brilliant. As I said, not being able to get down as much as I would have liked, but yeah, it's definitely gripped me now.
So from your perspective then, Wayne, what was it like having a new chairman? How did you feel getting the news you've got a new chairman, and then how did the kind of relationship progress from there?
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, the progression has been really smooth and easy. I mean, Rob may tell you different, but no. I think, we've from day one, we've, sort of put our cards on the table. We've been honest, and look at the end of the day, we want what's best for the club. To be fair, Rob's, fairly easy to work with. Obviously I'll only ring him if I need anything or I want money for something. and to be fair, he always delivers. But, no, I mean, I knew going back last Christmas that the club was up for investment with obviously the current chairman, Dave, and one of the directors then, Rob. Davis said to me that the club obviously, going forward, they need a new investment. They didn't feel at the time there was enough maybe local support financially to help the club go in a direction that they wanted to be really successful. So obviously, they had to branch out and advertise it. And then obviously along comes Rob from London. So, obviously we've had numerous discussions since his takeover, and, he's made it quite clear where he wants the club to be, his plans for it. Like you said, I hope he doesn't mind me saying he's quite a successful businessman in his own way. And, he made that quite clear that, yes, it's a love of his, but it's also a business. And, when you see the financial gains in the club and the way the club can go forward, like other clubs in our league have done, providing with the right guidance, I suppose, and the right backing, and, the sort of the project you have, which, we've got time set for certain things. And I think that's for Rob to say, but, we have the discussions within. But yeah, from my point of view, because you're always apprehensive, George, a new owner or chairman coming in, you're thinking personally, is your job at risk? He'd like to do things maybe other ways and have a totally different view on things to what has currently been there. Again, I go back to it. I'm fortunate enough to, be given the chance to take the club forward with Rob's support and guidance. And hopefully, that's what we can achieve. And, where it takes us, only knows, but it won't be for the lack of hard work, commitment and desire. I can promise that. And as well as, knowing my experiences and football knowledge down this area, I think is beneficial to the way we want to do it. So, onwards and upwards on that. But yeah, delighted. Totally different to what I've worked with in the past. And, credit to Dave Hughes, who's worked his absolute socks off for the last 14, 15 years, I'm assuming. But, Dave admits he's getting older. He's worked this, and it is a time for, the club's in transition. It's time for new blood. It's time for new ideas. The club has been crying out for it. And I, even here, I asked the whole of Pembrokeshire to get behind it because it's going to be exciting times. In the past, maybe there's been a bit of a divide maybe between certain people around Pembrokeshire with the club. But, those days have gone now. We're a club playing in the National League, and anybody in the county should want to see the club doing well, giving their utmost support and hopefully, fulfill European days ahead, which, family members of theirs from Pembrokeshire should be involved. We've got a great academy system up and running. And, this is the way we need the support of the people of Pembrokeshire. We do, and, I don't believe I've been involved with the club long enough to see the divides in the past. And there's absolutely no need for it. The new brush sweeps clean. Things in the past have happened. But, get together, unite as a county and push the club in the right direction. I plead that.
So you mentioned earlier, Wayne, you've been at the club now on 18, 19 years now. So I understand this question that you've got a lot more memories to choose from than Rob has in the last nine months. But we'll start with you, Wayne. What's your favourite moment you've had at Haverfordwest?
Favourite moment? Well, I've got two favourite moments, if I'm being honest with you. One as a player and one as obviously a manager of the club. As a player, I was fortunate enough I go back to 2003, 2004 season where we had what obviously currently now is on paper the best team factual has most probably represented Haverfordwest in terms of what we achieved, which has never been done in the club's history. And I understand that, years ago it was Welsh League and totally different organisations. But, the 2003, 2004, we finished third that season, got into Europe, into the UEFA Cup. We were unfortunate not to play the home game of the Bridge Meadow due to the facilities and obviously the criteria of European football. So we had to go and play in Ninian Park, a team called FC Havvy Got, if I pronounced it right. I had the unfortunate task of man-marking a winger for them who actually signed for Spurs the week later. We lost 1-0 in the home leg and we lost 4-0 out there. But I man-marked him in the two games and he signs a 2-year contract with Tottenham Hotspur 2 weeks later. Ended up being an Icelandic international. But, that experience and moment to represent Haverfordwest in Europe. And personally for me, I was fortunate with my local club. I played in the Intertoto Cup with Carmarthen 2 years prior to joining Haverfordwest. But for me, that as a player was obviously the big moment there. But I mean, obviously it's my second promotion with Haverfordwest, but as a manager then, 2014-15 season was the highlight for me. I mean, obviously we got promoted last year through different reasons or whatever, which is a great achievement, but we had to go on the last game of the season in 2014-15 away to Aberdeen. And we were third at the time, but we had to finish second. And we had to win by 5 clear goals. And obviously, I don't know, obviously, if you've been to Aberdeen, John, it's quite a difficult place to go. You know, it's not no disrespect, but it's not the best setup. Hard. It was on like a Wednesday evening. And it was packed there because there was so much interest in the game. And, you know, we had to win by 5 clear goals to get promoted. And I never forget, it was Cardiff Met, who were second at the time. And they were due to get promoted. And obviously Christian Edwards and all the students were there, along with a lot of other students from Cardiff University, because had we not won 5-0, they're promoted. So it would have been, i.e. their carnival day as such, had we not done it. But we managed to win 5-0. We went 3-0 up after about 30 minutes. I'll never forget it. And we worked it out. And to be fair, I was fortunate then. We had Ryan Evans, who was our physio. And he was on the phone looking, and he was on the Twitter, oh, look, there's X, Y, Z, we need this. And he was doing all the stats, Sean Cresser. And then we went in half-time 3-0 up. So we only needed 2 goals in 45 minutes. So we broke the game down. To be fair, it was Sean who said, look, let's just simplify this. We know there's goals here for us. Aberdeen, to be fair, at the time, it was the end of season game, and you know they had nothing to play for. And we said, look, if we break this up here, if we split this into a goal every 22.5 minutes, which we're more than capable of doing, we're promoted, lads. And we embedded it in, and everyone sort of believed, and you could just feel it in there. Well, we come out second half, and I think it was Sam Roden playing for us, scores more or less straight from the kickoff, so we're 4-0 up. And we think we've only got another goal here to go now. You know, the game is over from Aberdeen's point of view. And we've got another half hour to go then. And I think, I may be wrong, but I think it could have been Declan Carroll who's gone and chipped the keeper to go 5-0 up. Well, it was just shock. And we're looking at the clock now. We've only got 20 minutes. We've got 20 minutes left, you know. We're 5-0 up. Do we park the bus, as they say, and just see it out? Or do we keep going and just keep going? And I remember me and Sean, as my sister, we're arguing in the dugout. And I'm saying, look, we're on top here. Let's just keep it going. The game is done. Sean, more conservative to me. Look, he said, clean sheet. We're promoted. And I most probably, it's the most complex I've been, because one minute I'm doing this, then I'm doing that, then I'm shouting. And I'd be honest with you, it was the last 20 minutes for me was a lull. It was just, I was numb. Final whistle. No, I'll say one thing right at the end, sorry. And we're 5-0 comfortable. We ended up parking the bus as such, right? We just kept possession and everything else with it. But they've had a shot from the halfway line now, and I'm talking about 2 minutes to go. And we had Craig Morris, Hovis in goal then, and it's going back. And it was like a film, to be honest with you, John. As he's going back, he's sort of fallen on the floor, and the ball has just gone. Because had the ball been on target, because he had fallen, he's gone back so much, it was in. But I think it just hit the roof of the net, and all the stand, and there must have been about 600-700 people here, just the sigh, oh. And I've looked like that, and Ovis gets up, puts his hand up, no fault of his own, because he hadn't done nothing wrong. And then we've kicked it, they've blown up. And like you said, I mean, I actually drove up that game. I didn't want to go on the team coach because I just was so focused. I had my own ideas about things, and I refused. I wanted to drive up just to keep myself to myself and stay focused. And I just remember driving home, and it was and the texts you get, the tweets you get, congratulations. You know, I've worked for 4 seasons to try and get the club up. And, you know, for the 3 seasons prior to that, we've always been in the top 2, missed out on the 3 occasions. But to finally do it, it was so surreal, because it was a Wednesday night. We didn't really, and it was the last game. We did, like a Saturday, you go after the game and you have a proper, you know, celebration. We didn't really do it. And it just bypassed, and we had a presentation evening then and celebrated it well. But yeah, I mean, for me as a manager, that was better because of the scenario than obviously last year. Again, you know, we had to find out, what was it, Rob, 5 or 6 weeks later prior, were we promoted, weren't we, because of the COVID regulations. And we didn't really celebrate it, you know, because as soon as we knew that, it was all cylinders going, preparing them for this season. But they're my 2 anyway.
Rob, what about you?
Yeah, not as many memories as the Gaffer, but yeah, Bala away was
Yeah, that was special.
Was Sunday. I mean, obviously I was sat with you in the stands, Jordan. We absolutely lost it. I think I nearly picked up Curtis Rees. I think who had just come off. I think that's probably the last thing he needed, really. But yeah, no, it was just amazing experience, and obviously seeing everyone go ballistic. I think Danny Williams and Alric Jones ran on the pitch, and I think they both got booked for their celebrations, even not being part of the team at that point. Yeah, that was an amazing day. I think to come from behind as well, it was such a. I'm not knowing too much about Bala, but you can see like the old experienced ex-pros, and going 1-0 behind, you kind of feel that. I think even the most optimistic of people would have thought you'd probably take a 2-0 defeat at this point just to not get hammered. But no, we came back and with a better team for the last 60 minutes, I would say. And to win it that way as well, just last kick of the game after one of the Bala players throws himself to the floor in losing possession. That was. I wouldn't say it's just probably the best Haverfordwest memory. It's probably one of my better footballing memories. To be honest, that was some day.
Yeah, that was, considering the kind of long coach journey we went through to get there as well. And I probably that last minute winner when everyone ran on the pitch was probably the quickest I've seen Alaric Jones run since.
Yeah, he love you for that, Jod.
that was a phenomenal moment. Fair play. Going back to the kind of the build up to last season. Then obviously it was a very strange scenario in which to gain promotion. So first of all, how did it feel to gain promotion? You kind of alluded to it a little bit there. And then what was the pre-season like? I'll start with you, Wayne.
Yeah, again, it all happened so sharp, but prior to that, I got to be honest, we were in discussions, Rob, weren't we, in terms of budgets, and because obviously, we're playing in the National League, there's more money's available to you, and, we had two lists really. We had targets for both leagues, within the budget, players that, wouldn't necessarily want to play maybe Cymru South had we not gained promotion, but we had targets there. Plus we had, budget in place who we wanted to keep, plans who we wanted to release or what have you. And then when it came through, which was, we actually lost out on one or two players due to that. And the waiting, I'm quite open about that because players wanted commitment to it. They wanted to know regardless, they wanted to stabilise themselves. They weren't prepared to wait for the decision of the leagues. But obviously what comes with that then, if they're committing, they wanted certain finances and whatever league regardless, and we weren't in a position to do that. I think that would have been football suicide to do that. But, we went ahead with it. And if I'm being honest, it happened so quick, Jod. We had to implement the training sessions, the recruitment of the way we had to do it. And as, obviously because we didn't know, other clubs, i.e. if we were Welsh Premier, players were committing to their current Welsh Premier team. So we couldn't really go in and, sort of approach them because they're already committed because of the delay we had. But I thought, even now I'm very comfortable with the recruitment we've done. We've done a lot of late business in 2 or 3 signings just prior to the window closing, which benefited us and proved worthy signings from us. But again, it was so slapdash to a small degree, which, had to be done because of the situation we were in. And I think, looking back in hindsight, so far, so good with it. Pleased. Could have been maybe 1 or 2 more experience coming in because I felt that's one thing I knew we'd lack in terms of playing at the Welsh Premier League. But time was against us a little bit. But the last minute tweakings we had to do for, obviously experience and physicality sides, I think, has turned out to be okay so far.
So going back to you, Rob, then, you found out that we were promoted and we were going to play in the Cymru Premier, and you had your targets. I'm assuming you would have sat down and had some meetings before the season. What were the kind of the ambitions, the main ambitions for the season?
We've said all along was to stay up. 10th was a success. I think going on to what Wolsey said, I think we had to kind of take the thought that we were going to be promoted and just plan on that basis and just go full steam ahead. Even before we knew, we just said, look, we feel we're going to get promoted. Let's just do it. I think we had the point where we were looking at, okay, what if we go up, what sort of players can we look at, as Wolsey said. But I think got to the point when we were expected to know, and I think the decision was delayed another 3 or 4 weeks. So we said, we just need to you just need to push on and assume it. Look, we could look very silly if it doesn't happen, but I think the chances were in our favour, and I think just in terms of history and what's happened in other leagues, I think we knew in our heart of hearts that we would have been promoted. So it was all a bit. It wasn't rushed, but yeah, it wasn't as leisurely as we would have liked. I think some of the players, we just had to make decisions fairly quickly and hope that they pay off. And I think, yeah, the players were brought in. Not obviously seen a lot of them last season in terms of playing in the Cymru South, but yeah, the players that have come in, one or two took a few games to find their feet, but they've certainly not looked out of place. And I think they're just a team that's just improving. I think, yeah, one or two more experienced players would have been helpful, but yeah, the average age of the squad is ridiculously low for this level. But they've really come into their own over the last 6-7 games, and they're showing that they're improving. So yeah, staying up was number one, because the last time the club went up, it was only up for a season and went back down again. And that's the last thing that we wanted to do, because the 3-year plan is there within that timescale. Relegation would obviously put a massive dent in that. And yeah, we're I think 8 or 9 points clear from the bottom two, looking up rather than looking down. We know there's still some tough games to play, and we're playing teams in and around us, so bad results there can bring us back down. So taking nothing for granted, but yeah, 10th and up is a success. And then obviously we have plans now for the next season, which we're already kind of tentatively talking about. Not trying to get ahead of ourselves, but I think being confident is a good thing in terms of taking the next step. And then yeah, it's about doing things that we need to do, and bringing people in that believe in what we're trying to do, that want to stick with us for 2 or 3 seasons and hopefully help us fulfill it. So yeah, no, staying up, number one, and just start building now for the next 2 seasons.
I'm assuming you were pretty much on the same wavelength there, Wayne, 10th and above. Yeah,
totally. Exactly. For me, nothing changes. And I think with a group of players we've got, we've implemented from the start. They've bought into it. We know we're an experienced bunch, but we're learning every single game. And providing, if we finish 10 and above, we've done our job. Anything else, like Rob's saying, this year's a bonus for me. And then, we look on to next season, because we said consolidation this year's priority. Our ambitions go higher next season, and the season after we go beyond. So taking nothing away from how we're doing, and there's still a lot of football to be played, and as we all know, it can slap you back in the chops as good as anything. So we're not getting carried away. We'll take the plaudits, and rightly so, because I think we've earned it where we are. But go on to the next stage. We're preparing now. We're training hard now. All's well. We get given the green light over the next few days, maybe, to resume back, and we'll be ready to go again. And obviously we've got 6 games remaining for where we know the split will be, and wherever that takes us, great. But we know the next 6 games are pivotal to not just this season, but next season as well. So, we've got a lot in store. We've got a lot of plans, but still a lot of hard work.
So obviously pre-season wasn't ideal. It was a very strange one. And then we had the fixtures kind of released, and we had all the excitement of that, looking for the big names. We were due to open against Kevin Druids on the first weekend of the season, but we all know how that went. So how did you feel before the first game of the season? Obviously, Rob, you weren't able to be there, but we'll start with you, Rob. How did you feel on that cold Tuesday night, thinking, this is it, this is the beginning of the season?
Yeah, just unbearable, to be honest. Again, it was not a game that I could be at, so I was following through social media and through flash scores and any other medium that I could find to get any sort of information through. I think we'd all taken a draw and a clean sheet. I think it was a good start to the season for us. I think we had a glorious chance against Griffiths that was through. And I think up the other end, I think Morley's made a good save to keep it level. So I think it's quite eventful the first half, and I think the lack of updates in the second half was actually quite a relief, to be honest. I think it was no news was good news at that point. Yeah, just incredibly nervous, and I think it's as I've obviously got more involved in the club, grown to love it a little bit more each time. It just gets more and more difficult as we go on. But yeah, no, just very nervous. So the Druids game was very disappointing. It was a long night that night. I think it was called off at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So it was a bit of devastation. I had my son and a friend of mine were going to drive up and watch the game. So it was a bit of a sad day on that Saturday with everybody else playing and football happening all over the country, and unfortunately not with us. But yeah, we were clearly not destined to play them for a while. The next one was called off as well. Yeah, just terribly nervous going into the first game, and it's only got worse.
It wouldn't be the Cymru Premier without some kind of drama. Wayne, how did you feel before the Met game?
Yeah, prior to that, a month before, I spoke to Christian Edwards, their manager, and we arranged a pre-season friendly to play them because obviously, they wanted a game, we wanted a game. We'd only certain teams we could play. So we went up there, and we ended up playing their second string as such, their Bucks team, with 1 or 2 first team. But I actually got there quite a bit early. Maybe a bit of a Bielsa, call it a spy-in sort of journey. But so I sat there and I watched, and they worked on a lot of transitions of play, and I actually jotted a couple of things down, and maybe Christian won't appreciate me saying that, but it's true. But I know, they're an experienced team. They've done really well. They've earned the right. They played European football. They played in the playoffs for numerous occasions. Good, a lot of ex-pros there, some of whom I know and worked with in the past. But, when I seen the team we played pre-season, you're thinking, right, okay, it's about a run out for us now. But it also gave Christian an opportunity to see us for 90 minutes because, we're not fortunate we didn't have a second team or a reserve team, so we rotated teams. But going into the game then, and you see their team, and it's totally different to the team we played a month, and I'm thinking, here we go. But I got to say, like you said, we had a couple of good chances, and Hawley that night was superb, to be fair to him. Pulled off some brilliant saves, and it was one of them games in the end, take nothing away. They most probably deserved the 3 points, but, your first game back in the Welsh Prem, I think it was a clean sheet. We've had a couple of good chances. And in the end, we've come away from there delighted. And like I said to the lads, that's a benchmark now. You're playing your first game, don't be overawed. And I think it was the week after, was it Newtown then, the first home game for us, the live broadcasted game. Again, and 2-2 draw. Yeah. Great character again, still learning. We conceded sloppy goals that day, if I remember. But the desire and the will, and I started thinking, we've got something here. We've got something. We've played 2 established clubs here. We've got something. And then the most pleasing thing for me was that even the youngsters, and like Rob said, we've got an average team of 21, 22 this year. No one is fazed by it. No one. And I think they've taken that into, the previous games, the past 16 games, and we've grown. We've grown week in, week out. Yes, we've made mistakes. Yes, I've got things wrong. But, I think in the journey we're on, we've got to expect that because, what comes with an experience and youthfulness is mistakes. And that's what we're all doing. So we're all learning, pleasing. But, yeah, it was a good start for us, a good benchmark to, you draw your first game of the season, you're thinking, a point for your first game. Would you take mid-table after 16 games? Certainly.
So we're now 6-7 months on from then. 15, 16 games we've played since then. How would you kind of assess the team's performance this season? Given the expectations were 10th and above, I would probably agree that we've exceeded expectations. Rob, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think more so than the results, the position, the results we've had. We've not really been. I think there's probably the Druids away game and possibly the Connors Key home game. I think they're the only games where we've actually been comfortably outplayed. I think obviously TNS was gut-wrenching losing that in the last minute. But Bala home and away, we're certainly worth the 4 points. Even the games have not played that well, we've still kept in and ground out results. So I think more so just not just the results, but the level of performances, the fact that it's improving, the fact that, as I've said, a lot of the younger players are taking to it really well and not fazed by it and showing the confidence they need. Individually, they're going to make mistakes as they're learning, but I think more so how well we've played and how it's particularly the late goals we've scored as well. I mean, it shows we've kept going right to the end and dug out points as and when we needed to. The Carnarvon home game, being one. We scored a couple late goals against Flint to win there. So that's a massive positive. I think we know even going into injury time, Druids at home, obviously Scotch's free kick. We know even going into injury time, we're still in with a shout. So I think that kind of attitude and performance is as pleasing as actually getting the results. But don't get me wrong, if we hadn't performed anywhere near our ability and we still had 19, 20 points, we'd be happy. But I think the manner of how we've played, the style of play, I think we've been really exciting to watch on a lot of occasions, and that was justified in the two live games over, I think, the end of November time when we played TNS and Bella. I think the plaudits that we won by the way we played in those games was as pleasing as the results that we got.
Yeah, I think the TNS game was a really interesting one, because even though we lost, I think by that point TNS had maybe won all their games apart from one, and no one had really got close to them. And I remember we were 1-0 up after, I think it was in the first 10 minutes. And I remember, I looked back through the video clip, because I remember, because the video camera was right next to me, and as the goal's gone in, I've kind of yelped rather than celebrate. It was more out of surprise than elation. But I think the way we went there and kind of played our game rather than reacted to them and took it to them. And like you said, when you play with so many youngsters, you could always make mistakes can happen. But the way we went there and gave them a good game, and like you said, it won us a lot of plaudits. Do you see things the same way, Wayne?
Yeah, I think so. And that's the word plaudits. We've had a lot of appreciation of how we've come into the league and not feared. We haven't feared anything this year. We've earned the right. I keep saying it. I know it's a big talking term in football. We've earned the right for it. We've got a lot of players who will have good careers, certainly at this level. Hopefully with us, and if not with us, bigger and better. If they go on to better things, good luck to them. But from where we're at and what we're trying to do, I think it's a credit to the club. And from what people are telling me, we've become a credit to the league. So that's rewarding in its own right. But within, again, I keep going back to it. Still a lot of work to do. Still a lot of progress to be made. And I'm really comfortable with the group of players I've got. Hence, the transfer window. To be fair, Rob, give me the opportunity to recruit and to strengthen, if that's what you want to say, or bring players in who can offer us different things. But these players, in all fairness, they're players you'll have in the trenches for you. They'll come out fighting. They've got each other's backs there. They're a close bunch. They're an honest bunch. We've got a few characters there. But we've got talent. We've got a lot of talent there, Jordan. And again, with their age on their side, providing, they're prepared to learn and listen and dedicate, commit. Listen, some of these will, I don't doubt, go on to bigger and better things. I really mean that. And I've, been in the game a long time. I've played it. I've coached for the last 12 years. And I've seen it time and time again. But we're blessed. We've got them with us. We look after them. They're well looked after with us. The coaching staff give them, good programs, good education. So they're in good places. But long may it continue. And again, let's stay in this league this year.
So looking forward to the future then, we've seen a lot of clubs that have really, really developed in the past 5-10 years. Looking at Conisky Nomads, Caernarfon have done really well. And more recently, you look at Penybont, who were staving off relegation last season, and now they're kind of challenging to enter the top 4. What do you think the Bluebirds need to do to kind of reach that next level and kind of knock on the biggest doors of Welsh football? Wayne, we'll start with you.
Well, again, I think the big word is experience. We've said from the off this season that consolidating as a club this year is our main ambition. We achieved that by staying 10th and above. That's job done. Going on to next season, I think in order for us to go up a gear, we'll most probably have to look at bringing a couple of experienced players in who can help the current, high potential players we've got achieve the goal of, one, them improving, secondly, as a club improving. So I think that would be our main objective. I think our targets next season, we don't want to just be, or let's just stay up like we do this year, because, we're fully aware of learning the league this year, learning new grounds for some of these players. They've never been there. The travelling aspect of things, the extra training, the requirements that are needed. And we're able to fulfill that. So going on to next season, they won't be overawed with what's expected of them. With additions, we will look to improve. We will look to bring a couple of experienced players in. You know, we are mindful that we've got a couple of players maybe potentially coming to the end of their careers. So we've got to look to replace that early enough and prepare for that. I think on top of that, if we set our bar higher than this year and look to possibly achieve a top 6 place next year, which will be my ambition, along with the chairman I know. And that would be our target. And by doing that and achieving that, that's progression in its own right from where we were. And I think really, in a nutshell, that's it, George. That will be our ambition, providing this year we stay up, you know, because there's still a lot of work to be done and we are confident of doing that. But it stays with hard work.
So top 6 is obviously going to be an ambition as soon as possible, Rob. What kind of mechanisms are you putting in place, or what's happening in the moment that kind of pushing the Bluebirds to reach that level for next season?
Well, obviously on the pitch, Wayne's covered it. We know exactly what we need in terms of 3 or 4 players that have been there, seen it and done it, and will complement the younger players that we've got and help improve them. Off the pitch, obviously this year financially has been completely all over the place, just with regards to so much uncertainty with regards to fans coming in, what support we can get from the FAW, what support we're going to get from UEFA and local authority. And I think, yeah, we're kind of thankful that we've been able to get a fair amount of support on the condition that obviously we've had to continue to play, which is what everybody's wanted. And obviously there's investment that can go into the club, but it's limited in terms of how far that can take us. We need the club to generate more revenue by itself. So that will be obviously re-engaging with the local community and getting people coming through the door. I think if we can get 500, 600, 700 people to every home game, I think that will probably double what there was in the south. And that revenue can go straight back into the first team and infrastructure. Sponsors, obviously not been able to fulfill the stadium naming rights this season, as well as a few other key sponsorships, just because we can't offer anybody anything. So it's a difficult sell. So there's a lot of pressure on that next season to make sure we can get as much money off the pitch as possible. So it needs investment to grow, but it also needs the support of others to come and watch us, to sponsor us, to spread the word, so that we've just got more ammunition to push on with. I don't think you necessarily need to splash cash to be successful in this league. Look at the teams that have qualified for Europe previously. Obviously, Cardiff Met, Druids, Newtown, Carnarvon. These are teams that have been obviously well run and well managed, but not necessarily had huge amounts of investment. So it certainly can be done, but it's got to be a managed growth. It's not just a case of throwing money to try and get somewhere. We don't want to be relying on European money to stay afloat. We want to be using that to then take the club to the next level. And if we can get into Europe in 3 years, there's no reason why we can't be a professional club with mostly full-time staff and players in 5 years. I mean, it's all achievable, assuming we get everything right along the way. But yeah, we need the club to generate more revenue for itself, which is a big push now with regards to having people helping out commercially and just doing what we can to get as many people down to the Bridge Meadow on a match day as possible.
You kind of alluded to a little bit there, Rob, what you'd like to see. But in your kind of ideal timeline then, where are the Bluebirds in 5 years' time? What does Haverfordwest County look like to you?
I think it should be a top 4 team. I don't think there's any reason why they can't be a top 4 team. And playing in Europe year in, year out and challenging to win cup competitions. I think obviously depending on what happens with the top clubs, I think winning the league is a pipe dream, but it's certainly one I'd love to see in the not too distant future. But yeah, we have to be realistic. But the funding they have and the foundations they have and the quality of players and reputation they have has been obviously decades of work. TNS obviously winning the league for 9 of the last 10 years. Connors Key, huge investment to win the league. So when we're not in those levels, but I think there's no reason in 5 years, if we're partly or mostly a full-time professional club, that we won't be challenging for top 4 every year.
Wayne, what about you? If you were manager of Haverfordwest in 5 years' time, where would you like the club to be?
Yeah, like you said, competing for European football. I think that's the aim. That's the goal for myself. Obviously this year stay up, consolidate, build, grow, 3 to 5 years. If we're fortunate enough, and I'm fortunate enough to obviously be still in post, that's where I want to be. I want to be competing every week, you know, to achieve things and win things. You know, like you said, like Rob said, they're not just 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever. Winning Welsh Cups, winning League Cups. Why not? Why not? And, you know, at the end of the day, there'd be nothing better than looking back on your career and seeing silverware and medals as a player. You've had it. So, yeah, that's where we're at. But, you know, it's a lot of work in progress. You know, we're still on the foundations. We're still there building the blocks. And, you know, let's fingers crossed we're going to get where we want to get. You know, we're just going to take hard work, time, commitment, dedication, patience. I think a lot of patience is key. So, yeah, putting it all together, I think, you know, the infrastructure is right. Rob's connections, bringing people in and supporting that way. And again, we go back to it, you know, if we can have extra added local support, which, you know, if people of Pembrokeshire want to brag about, then Haverfordwest the club to put them on the map for that, you know, and let's do it all together, I say.
Well, on that very optimistic and hopeful note, that brings down the curtain on the first episode of Have You Got News for You? Thank you very much for my guests, Wayne Jones and Rob Edwards, for spending this time with me. And thank you very much for listening / watching wherever you are.
Thank you, Jod. Thank you very much.